I've got gas. Propane, specifically. Given the salty roads and frigid conditions in Minnesota, an insulated propane box is a big benefit. My tank box is a B&B aluminum unit from down south in Faribault, Minnesota. We start out with copious amounts of measuring and remeasuring before drilling mounting holes. Note that my wheelhouse came with convenient pre-installed aluminum brackets welded directly to the frame. With the box sitting in position on the welded brackets, I drill pilot holes from inside the house through the studs and through the back of the box to align my mounting holes. I decided to use some 1-inch aluminum square tubing to distribute the load across the box's back wall. I start by VHB taping it over the pilot holes I just drilled. I then use the previous pilots to drill out the final mounting holes in both the box and studs to accept a 3/8-inch fastener. I wrestled the box into its final resting place, doing my best to align the mounting holes. Now, I didn't happen to have the correct length fasteners, but I did have plenty of stainless threaded rod. So I cut that to length and nylock nutted it together. I also want to get the actual tank mount into the box today as well. I start with more measuring and then pre-drill and install 2 large self-drilling sheet metal fasteners through the front bottom of the box into the square tubing mounts below. I then get the tank mounting plate located where I need it and run 2 additional sheet metal screws through it into the mounting brackets below. And last, I assemble the threaded rod tank clamp assembly and test fit the tanks. I'll get to adding insulation, the gas regulator, and plumbing in the future. It ended up turning out pretty nice. Next up, before we spray foam, we're trying to think of everything we would need to do underneath the trailer. One of the things we talked about and implemented here was running some wire raceways underneath. We just used some 1.5-inch polyethylene sprinkler pipe we had and some rubber fittings on each end. As I usually do with the hole saw, I'll drill about halfway through from one side and then come to the other side and drill down so you don't get so much blowout on the plywood. The rubber fittings were a little tight, but we maneuvered them into position and used hose clamps underneath to secure them to the polyethylene pipe. trim to fit, and finish the other side the same way. All right. Well, as promised, I wanted to go through some of the thoughts on layout as we progress the build here. This is after many hours of deliberation and many revisions, but here's kind of what we're thinking at this point, so I'll walk you through. So number one, there's really basically two fishing stations, one on each end, one in the bump out and one in the back end. There's a fishing hole in front of each chair, and then a camera hole up in front of that can get both jigs on each of those. There's also a fishing hole in the middle here, right in front of the bench. So from that, some of the thoughts above this back area is where the vertical lift bed will be. So that'll be up in the ceiling while you're fishing. This bench here will have a board in the front here with a piano hinge that'll flip up. So this will be a 6.5 foot bed here. And then eventually I want to get a trifold couch for the bump out that can fold out and sleep another person there. This area above this wheel well will be kind of the kitchenette. So there'll be a counter here. I'm thinking about putting a piano hinge on the back of that so that if I pull four-wheelers in here, I can flip that up so that we're wheel well to wheel well spacing. Underneath that counter, there will be a microwave on one side and some cabinets and storage on the other side. Up above that will be some additional cabinets, a vent hood. I'm going to use just an induction dual burner hot plate for cooking. And then if we move around front here, there's a small bathroom area. Still a little more thinking here on how this door is going to open here, but I think I've got enough room to swing open to get in and out of there, but we might mock that up. And then in front here's another cabinet. Now here's where the furnace is, the batteries, a lot of wiring, and additional storage. And yeah, that's where we are at this point. So obviously any feedback is welcome. Trying to figure out how to best optimize and use each square inch of this thing to the best. It's not a huge space, but we want to make sure we use it most effectively. So more to come. All right, well, last little project of this episode is another storage box. This one's very similar installation to the propane box on the other side. This one we're going to use for storing extension cords, the hitch, the blocks, frame blocks to put underneath there, all sorts of stuff that we don't have room to store inside. With that, we start out here by putting some precision shims on top of my floor jack here and getting everything in position, measuring, remeasuring, and making sure we're well aligned. Once in position, just like the propane box, we measure some pilot holes from the inside and drill through the aluminum studs right through the back of the storage box. Again, reminiscent of the propane box installation, we VHB tape some 1-inch aluminum tube to the back where the bolts will come through, just to help distribute the load on that pretty thin aluminum. Now with the storage box laying on its face, we come back and drill the actual holes using those pilots as markers through the back of the box, through that 1-inch aluminum tubing, and we're one step closer. Come back inside, use the pilots on the studs to drill the matching 3/8 inch holes, and we're ready for fasteners. As for fasteners, again, I didn't have in stock the exact length I needed, so I took some additional 3/8 inch threaded rod, cut it to length, and deburred it a little bit on the sander there, and we were good to go with some stainless washers and nylock nuts. Now just struggle to get those bolt holes lined back up and bolt it in place. Now, unlike the propane tank where I had frame mounted tubes coming out to support the bottom, I did go ahead and add an additional 1-inch tube lower on in the box. So we had 4 bolt points and 2 places to distribute the load along that box. So once that was in, we were good to go. Another project chalked up.